www.hoodmystic.com. Leave your ego at the door.
You don't have to go beyond all these things. You just have to stop creating those things. Your fear, your anger, all these are products of a mind which you have not taken charge of. Your mind is capable of producing joy, your mind is capable of producing fear, your mind is capable of producing anxiety, turmoil, tranquility, agony, ecstasy. It can produce anything. It is producing things that you do not want simply because you do not know how to handle it.
Peace, everybody. It's the Hood Mystic, representing www.hoodmystic.com. Here with another video, another podcast, discussing the upcoming full moon, which takes place September 14th. That's about 13 days from today. I'm recording this episode September 1st, 2019. Really want to get into some esoteric astrology, basing this reading on Sidereal astrology. The reason why I discuss Sidereal astrology, because it relates closer to the astronomy that we're experiencing presently. Western astrology deals with the astronomy, but not in exact relation. So we're trying our best to get accurate information. Western astrology is not completely wrong, but in the hopes of being accurate, being closer to the truth, my personal feeling is that Sidereal astrology is more accurate. With that being said, we're discussing a full moon in Aquarius. Be sure to, any questions, anything related to astrology, anything related to YouTube, social media, anything like that, be sure to email me at hoodmystic@gmail.com. Be sure to do that. So yes, a full moon is falling in Aquarius, very esoteric, very internal, a lot of things to process. And so if you need a background on everything that we're discussing, be sure to check out www.hoodmystic.com. There will be the article related to this full moon. So besides this podcast, you have something else more tangible to kind of relate and kind of just figure it out on your own. So yeah. Aquarius, the realization of what's next. And to understand the realization of what's next, we're dealing with a lot of different people, different backgrounds, different ways of life, but that's okay, because astrology is a language that we all can understand, we all can vibrate under, we all can get some kind of point of reference, because we deal with the realms of psychological, relationship, home, self-identity, which also speaks to Leo. And Leo is where the sun would be. So we have a Leo Aquarius full moon. And so self-identity, being self-sustaining, and the new ideas that come from being self-sustaining. Because previous to Leo, our self-sustainment was in the collective. In Cancer, Leo is more of an individual understanding of self. This creates new ideas, and the full moon is for us to bring those opposing, or what would seem to be opposing, ideas in one space. So we find this ideology in the concept of truth, being able to speak our truth, being able to be in our truth. But you know how it is with human beings.
You can't handle the truth.
So we're referencing a personal problem at this point then, because where people are at is that they can't handle the truth that we're dealing with, or what we're experiencing, or what we're going through, and they can't really identify what's happening, or they do identify what's happening and they wish to change it, they wish to alter it, and they don't hope to observe it. So The truth is something that you have to be comfortable with expressing, because if it is your truth, it doesn't wish to be corrected unless it is corrected, unless you do seek to gain more information. So that's more or less the idea. Truth is found in research. Truth is found in understanding, where a lot of people refuse to do this. They refuse to observe truth. They refuse to research and really investigate what truth is in the realms of belief and in the realms of false beliefs and, things that you feel justified in, still beliefs. These things won't get you to the promised land, so to speak. These things will present themselves as blocks, ideologies, ways of life, things that you've just done repeatedly over time for years and never really questioned or never really gotten out of those particular ideologies because in the past they meant so much to you. Now that you're coming into new realizations, being able to express that, because this new moon really deals and addresses the throat chakra and the third eye chakra and how they relate. This isn't a status quo conversation. This is a very much revolutionary conversation, and this speaks to the energy of Aquarius. Very revolutionary, very thought-provoking, one might say. And so definitely easy and glorious and wonderful if you are introspective, and introspective in the space of observation and not introspection in the space of wanting to alter or change. Speaking your truth is definitely gonna piss people off, especially if they're not used to you speaking your truth. So many times we're in relationships and where we have this truth, but we never say it. So we externalize and shadow project our truths onto other people, and this creates the negative narrative that we create. Now, the reason why we may not speak our truth, because we are afraid of them, because we're dependent on them, because we view ourselves as needing them. These are all internal issues that really speak to self-reliance and self-understanding. You could be so dependent on a person that you lose sense of self and you lose sense of your inner dialogue. So this time is about breaking you free from that. So if you do have a truth, it's not to say that you have to just come out and just bring it to the surface all of a sudden, ease people into it, test people out, understand what's going on within you first, learn the different aspects of it. Aquarius could be a teacher, but it would be a teacher of youth. So in the space of teaching youth, you have to fully grasp a concept to even be able to explain it to a child. You have to get it and break it down to its most simplest aspects. So your truth has to be fully realized from within. Concepts like self-actualization, self-realization are found basically by examining your thoughts, dealing with mindfulness. And so I know that I personally can't explain this energy and explain what observation of your thoughts is in the best way, because I'm actually going through the process of observing my thoughts and understanding how to observe my thoughts. So I'm gonna let Sadhguru help us understand what it means to observe your thoughts. This video is about, this little audio clip is about 2 to 3 minutes long, and he's just gonna break down what observing your thoughts is. Once he gets finished with that, we'll get right back into this build. So let's just give it away for Sadhguru and him explaining what it means to observe your thoughts or examine your thoughts.
Here is Sadhguruji. I have a question for you. I'm a very emotional person and I often find it very difficult to emotionally detach myself from a situation that I know that is not good for me. Like I can see that this is not going somewhere where I want it to go, but it's very difficult to divert my mind and my emotions away from that. How do you think I can handle that situation? I would really like to know your perspective on it.
There's a whole lot of talk in the world about, the head and the heart business. But the way you think is the way you feel, and the way you feel is the way you think. For different people, different things run first. For some people, their thoughts, today largely because of the type of education, for most people, their thoughts run ahead of their emotions. But still there is a sizable percentage of people for whom their emotions run ahead of their thought. Now what Sonakshi is asking is, there are situations that you don't wish to be in, but emotions are tangled up. So thought keeps going there, unknowingly you keep walking in the direction. What you need to understand is, thought is agile. Today my thought says she is the most wonderful person. Tomorrow, if she does something that I don't like, immediately my thought says, she is no good. But if my emotions have gone ahead with this wonderful person, emotions are not that agile, they cannot turn around so quickly, it's little sappy, it takes time. In the meantime, you struggle because thought says this is not okay, but emotion is still entangled. Now what do I do about this? Don't try to control your emotions or thoughts, because the very nature of your mind is such that I don't want to think about this person means that's the only person I'm going to think about for the rest of my life. So, when compulsive thoughts and emotions come, first and foremost thing that you do is, you simply see them for what they are. You don't try to resist them. The moment you resist, they will multiply. In this mind, you don't have subtraction and division, you only have addition and multiplication. So, what you need to do, one thing is, just understand that thought and emotion are just a recycle of the data that is already there, something that you remember. It is just that memory is little smelly, it just keeps coming. You just have to see it like that, little distance from that. It is like you were jammed in a traffic jam, you were going to the airport, you got stuck in a traffic jam, how much anxiety and struggle you had. Then somehow you got there and then you got into the airplane and you took off. From up there when you look down, how nice the traffic jam looks. Simply because there is a little distance. Still the same traffic jam, but because there is a distance, suddenly there is nothing to it. Similarly with your thought and emotion, a little bit of practice to create a little distance from your physiological processes and your psychological processes come. But if you try to handle individual thought and emotion, they will multiply thousandfold.
So the idea that we're really trying to work with is not trying to control our thoughts, not trying to control our emotions, but to understand them. And in understanding them and observing them, you create distance. This little bit of distance of observing your thoughts, of observing your emotions, is a great power. If you could do it for a second, if you could do it for a minute, if you could do it for 30 minutes, all of this represents meditation. I'm not experiencing my feelings. I'm not experiencing my emotions. I'm observing my emotions. When you talk about the internet, when you talk about the world, they want you in your emotions. This conversation is to get you out of your emotions. So it's awesome about this full moon is that Venus and Mercury will be parallel, conjunct, They'll be right exact to one another at the same time that the sun and the moon are exact one another. And this actual point of Virgo speaks to awareness of the good and bad, more so of a lumberjack or somebody that has to do a job. He's good at his job, but never in the space of thinking about his job does he think of it as being easy. Even more so, the fact that it's difficult, it charges him up even more. We've all been in situations where we've had some challenge that we knew we were going to overcome, and just that thought alone is enough to just really bring us to a level of overcoming, to really tap into this power of observing your thoughts in a world where you never thought to do that. This truly represents Aquarius. This truly represents waking up, you know, and really understanding what it means to wake up and how to wake up. And it's very simple. That's why throughout this whole kind of build, we'll be building on the energy of Aquarius and the energy of awakening and what it means to awake, to wake up from sleeping. Understand that a part of you has been asleep and now it's waking up, and we can't just go about it just doing things the same old way that we've been doing it on an esoteric level, on a spiritual level. We have to go back to basics, go back to the foundation, go back to the meditation, the receptive meditation, which resides in the third chakra, bring it up to the fifth chakra, express it. But then there's a symbiosis between the sixth, fifth, and the third chakra. This new transmission from the divine that resides in our third eye, where we're clear enough to receive it, balanced enough to receive it, strong enough to express it, and still can hold a reverence for the past imperfection through truth. Because the past isn't all bad, right? If they give you a false narrative of your past, but don't give you your origin, they're not giving you the full story. So, I personally experienced what I needed, like this emotional response thing. I was just at the store recently and I got carded and I gave her my ID, like, here you go. She looked at it. My birthday just passed, so my ID was expired. She gave it back, told me to get out of her face. And I walked out the store and I felt the emotional reaction of being rejected and not getting my way, and the anxiety of going to get a new license and thinking about the line at the DMV, and all of these emotions came up, and I realized, like, oh shoot, I'm having an emotional attack at this point because of something that happened. And I began to observe my thoughts, and after a while I realized that my thoughts was in a much better place. I was thinking of a song or something, just having a good old time. And I reflected on not so long ago when those negative emotions rose up inside of me. When those negative emotions rose up inside of me, I really understood them, to observe them. And I was just thinking, like, damn, I could have still been in that space because I'm a brooder. You know, I'll get a negative emotion and I don't examine it. It can linger for days, weeks, months, years. I've brooded a long time over shit. And the key to brooding is that you could be absolutely right about the situation. You could see the person steal your prized possession. They have their fingerprints, DNA, blood, sprinkled a little crack.
But they never believe I lived it. He's still here. Oh my God. Open and shut case, Johnson. I saw this once before when I was a rookie. Apparently this nigger broke in and hung up pictures of his family everywhere. Well, let's sprinkle some crack on him and get out of here.
But the police don't arrest him. He moved to Mexico and he just got your prized jewels. And you're right about it, but there's nothing you can do about it. So in that space, you brood. And we never examine those thoughts. Well, at least I don't. So really identifying the moments that you are brooding or having these emotional attacks to turn them around. Another cool exercise is taking those emotions and giving them form. If you do feel like there's emotion that's happening and it's very intense and you're experiencing it, you're angry, fearful, shit just not going your way. If this happens, what does that shit look like? You know, in your mind's eye. Frame that emotion. Give it a whole shape, form, color, size. Imagine it. And in that space, what you are doing is isolating that emotion. And then from isolating that emotion, you are no longer experiencing it. Then you can choose what to do with it. Then we can understand that sometimes we know it all, but we can't always do it all. And if you're in the Aquarius zone without understanding the backdrop of Aquarius, that Capricorn energy, that stability, and that enterprise, and that working together and having a nice network of supporters and you supporting people and a nice funnel of information, that's the Aquarian way. Now, the Aquarian age and the Piscean age don't really mesh as well, based upon this idea that you have to do it yourself and being so isolated and so disconnected from source based upon the fake intermediary that has usurped the Piscean energy, aka Jesus Christ. So if the fish represent the nomos and the nomos are descendants of the Sirius star, and you're not getting this mythology told to you since you were a child, but you see Jesus and he got the fish symbol now. He's the fish and he's the truth, the way, and the light, and he knows not about Sirius and the connection to the nomos. It's just him and his homeboys, his disciples. So out of this discipleship into the age of knowing, one has to separate from that ideology and connect to truth. And as this awakening occurs, there should be some rewriting of history books. There should be some rewriting of your grimoire. There should be an understanding of your shadow. There should be an understanding of your soul. There should be an all-encompassing force of protection. There should be an understanding that I can control my reality with my thoughts. So these thoughts that I'm having, I'm creating this reality. I need to change my inner shit first. This is Aquarius. So from the 10th house to the 11th house, which rules Aquarius, we understand that this is about cooperation, the house of social activities. Even if you gotta step down a few notches just to be a part of something, think about it. This is not really a time of isolation, and isolation is an internal thing that you project on other people. It's okay to isolate myself because I'll console myself, and I have multiple plethora of ways of consoling myself in this society. I got as much porn as I need. I got as much food delivery services as I need. I got enough money as I need to destroy myself. I got everything I need to destroy myself. I have enough drugs. to isolate myself. So in that space, the Aquarius full moon is very difficult because spirit is going to tell you something completely contrary, to get over yourself, to examine your thoughts, to move forward in the sense of truth, in a sense of purpose, esoterically. Now, if you're just a mindless drone that just wants to just go about in a quiet, functional way, all you care about is your rent, your car payment, and that you could buy a couple outfits to look good on the gram, get a couple likes. This is a very tough time for you. If you're internally processing your shit in the space of not trying to change it, not trying to alter it, but just look at it for what it is and watch it detangle itself, that is the greatest power known to man. That is the greatest love of all. Word to Whitney Houston. Especially in the realms of conscious information, like people always are going for Mr. Hotep of the Year awards and talking about conscious information based upon consciousness within itself and have no realistic application. So even in your household, even in your relationships, even in your way of life, you're not expressing any conscious ideas. So go back to basics, understand how this can help you in the most mundane of ways, in the most normal of experiences, and stop trying to go for the swing for the home run all the time. Sometimes you can hit a single, get on base, your mans can hit a bunt so you can get to second, you know, you can steal third, and then, you know, get another single, you home. You know, every time you score, it don't gotta be a home run. Sometimes your team can help you get to the home plate, is basically what I'm trying to say. But if it's just you that gotta hit the home run, you gotta talk about conscious information that been talked about for years and there's been no major breakthroughs, now it's time to just simply get clear within at this point. Start from ground zero. Start again. Start over. It's okay to start over. It's okay to get to know yourself as opposed to people getting to know you before you even get to know yourself. If you are changing, the world is changing, your ideas should change too. And you get to these changes by simply examining yourself. So this is what we're trying to get to, examination. So now that we got the examining our thoughts part down, now, since this full moon has a T-square to Jupiter that resides in the third decan of the alchemical, transformational, Pluto-ruled Scorpio, Jupiter being really close to this energy, very much tied into how we really address our challenges in our lives, because a square within itself is challenges, a T-square is an opposition with two squares, so there is a challenge. But in the article I write that it doesn't feel negative. It's the same way we've all known times that we were about to have a fight or about to have a competition where we knew we were going to be like the winner because we just were confident in our stuff and kind of just sizing up the competition like, well, I'm gonna win. So in that space, it's a different type of confidence. That Leo energy presents a different kind of confidence moving forward. So the challenge is based upon you doing the work, not about you getting the most likes and the most love and looking at people like, you getting all the love or she getting all the love. Why don't nobody love me? Because this thing is esoteric. It's representing on the relationship that you have with yourself and what you feel from people is the love that they have for themselves. That's why big dudes can get beautiful women and all types of weird stuff happen in the realms of attraction and love. Because when people love themselves, strange things start to happen. When you examine your thoughts, strange things start to happen. It's automatically a level up. It's going to bring awesome things into your life because you're dealing with your power. You're not dealing with your ignorance of being force-fed negative emotions, since you could even think or process. Tell you your lineage, tell you your history, even though it's not, they didn't source it, they didn't prove it to you, they just told you, and get you in an emotional state collectively. So even if you do have consciousness, even if you do look into the history, find a different story than the common narrative, you're looked at as strange and weird. Well, I'm just studying. You ain't studying, you just believing. I'm trying to tell you something different, and you mad at me. So taking your approach down a few notches. So as a community, as a collective, we have to understand things. If the ways of trying to do things is not working, there must be another way of doing it. Trying to overtalk people, trying to educate, trying to show them things that they're not ready for seems to be not a good idea. We have this need for connection. We have this need for expression. So this Jupiter T-square says, well, it's going to be a challenge. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be perfect. That's cool with me. Might not be cool with you if you're into this, I don't know what to call it. Pseudo, pseudo, I think. Pseudo consciousness. Doo-doo, rather. This idea that everything I do, everything I believe, I don't have to work, I don't have to do anything but be my conscious self. It's half truth. It's true. But when it gets to your emotions are not gonna read that same way. You can tell me anything. You can show me anything. You can say anything. But when it all comes down to it, you may have to get your hands dirty. You may have to deal with some oppositions within yourself. Deal with some oppositions in your relationship. Deal with some oppositions in your career. Do different things that align with this emotional turmoil. It's hard to change it. Hard to change something that you can't fully get a grasp on. Something that you can't tangibly hold with your hands. Something that you only imagine in your mind. And it runs rampant. And then you identify it. You identify with it. So these squares, they look at oppositions and obstacles in hopes to come up with the solution, if there is a solution. The best solution, or sometimes the solution, is that there is no solution, and this is another examination of thoughts, because there has a level of expectations of what you should have externally, but never taking a full examination of what you are internally. Always reference this young lady that I met when I was working at a hotel, and she was handicapped. She couldn't walk, but she traveled. She lived in Arizona, but she traveled to Columbus Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. She was in Columbus. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, She was in Arizona and she worked a regular job in Columbus. She was like an executive, some big shot. She had money. She had this, nice Benz that she just had for Columbus. Another car in Arizona. Mind you, this lady couldn't walk, could hardly use any type of motor functions. Like she had a dog and she was completely by herself. She was like a boss though. Like, it was such a dichotomy and such a paradox to me. And just getting to know her and talk to her, it's just like, wow, I'm really selling myself short. So that lady, she really helped me never feel like I couldn't never do some shit, right? Like, she beat all types of odds and was living much better than I was. She might look at me and be like, damn, if I had my legs and my arms, you know how much dent, like, so you don't know what you can do until you really search your depths and you really go against your challenges and you really go against your blocks. Because when you explore your depths, when you examine your emotions and get in front of them, instead of letting them lead you, you realize that there is more to you. There's more to how you could express yourself and bring yourself into truth. So the adverse of this energy is really not working with your ancestors, really not processing your past lives and reincarnations and things like that, and imagining that you have no power, you have no understanding, you have no control of time, and time is being controlled for you. Not journaling your dreams, not paying attention to your dreams. Make sure you're drinking your mugwort tea this week. Pay attention to your dreams. What's happening in the dream world is that your dreams are telling you where you need to be. And the idea is to align with your dreams, especially if they're present. Especially if they're pleasant, rather. Aquarius brings about a lot of downloads and transmissions and just new information. And this downloads and transmissions, they're not like super spiritual. They're not like, lights and everything, all magical like people always speak to it. It's very much of a practical, reasonable, understandable thing that many people can understand. So doing these things, working with your ancestors, processing your past life, dream journaling, coming to a consensus, spreading this new information, making it practical, not being afraid to start from scratch, not being afraid to rework ideas, not be afraid to work with other people because we're in the 11th house, not being afraid to bring in the formless into form, thinking that things can't happen. No, everything can happen when you examine your mind. Anything is possible when you examine your mind. This is such a superpower. I can't even explain or express how powerful it is. You're just gonna have to do it. The cards that sit on top of this full moon in the third decan of Aquarius, the third decan of Leo, are the Seven of Swords and the Seven of Wands. The Seven of Swords speak to futility. The Seven of Wands speak to valor. Seven of Wands is ruled by Mars. The Seven of Swords is ruled by Venus and the moon. So the third decan of Aquarius is a decan of confrontation. There's a decan, so we would imagine that Aquarius is ruled by Uranus. The third decan is ruled by Venus and the moon. So we have an old masculine energy having to come to face with the moon and Venus, which are descendants of Sirius. So you have this ancient mother energy, this ancient patriarchal energy, and there's a confrontation when there needs to be a unification, there needs to be an integration. So as observers, you have to look at your old patriarchal misaligned views and incorporate this new solar energy. So wanting to be in the same types of relationships that they were in 1950, and when ain't no 1950 shits going on, wanting to be that's like wanting to be a telephone operator, like really trying to put in a application like, I can change the lines real fast, I can go from one line to another. You know how them old school telephone operators be, and like looking for a job like that. Well, ma'am, that job doesn't exist any longer. You can work in this call center though. So really understanding how the mind changes, how the world changes, and how your heart is the kind of go between those things. So our mind has been programmed ideas that aren't even relative to the world that we live in. And that awakening is very much of dealing with the helplessness, dealing with the depression, dealing with the fear, dealing with the anger, dealing with the anxiety, examining it if we still can, if it hasn't just taken over our whole lives yet. Still look at any feelings that rise up. This is what accesses to the heart. This is difficult because we only focus on what our mind wants, and we think about, they say we think 50,000 thoughts a day. 50,000. And imagine 50,000 of those thoughts being complete and total utter bullshit. So being inundated with complete and utter total bullshit, you can see why the world and why situations are the way that they are. Understanding the difference between the two, separate and just creating just a little bit of space to see that everything is bullshit in my mind allows us to create a level of truth. And that truth is found in the Seven of Wands. It should be expressed. The issue with this is that people are going to be expressing it from ignorance and belief and mind control. So you have to deal with that. And it's going to be very difficult to deal with that. So it's a level of retreat, a level of esoteric, a lesson of occultism, a lesson of changing my reality with my mind. But what makes this energy so worth it is because it's completely based in truth, and it's completely based in you just not going in the places that you hate any longer. Not staying in the relationship that you hate, the job that you hate, the house that you hate, the city that you hate, the fast food worker that you hate. You understand? Just exiting from all of that and dealing with so many different solutions. Because once we exit from the mind games that's been played on us, we deal with the pure thought and the pure mind and create a pure reality. Our mind isn't a mind that's able to differentiate between good and bad. Our mind just takes what you give it and amplifies it. So then from this perspective, as an esoteric, as an occultist, as a metaphysician, as a spiritual person, you have to program your mind all day, every day, at every turn, because that's what the world is going to do if you're not taking responsibility for it. It's not to have the biggest ankh. It's not to be the most spiritual person. It's not to have the most followers or sell the most products. It's simply about being able to program your mind and not allow nobody else to do it for you. So, to surmise this whole conversation that we've been having, Leo's self-reliance, that represents the Seven of Wands, has to be unified and understood with the Seven of Swords opposed where the full moon is. Seven of Swords speaks to futility, speaks to helplessness. And there is a level of helplessness when you deal with the external world, and there's a level of power when you deal with the internal world. Now, the internal world is a difficult nut to crack because it's inundated with thoughts. Go ahead and try to meditate right now and prove me wrong. So, with that being said, we cannot change or alter or untangle this web with the thoughts that it's created from. We have to observe it with the higher mind. And once we do that, we're able to break free from this matrix, from these chains, and really get introduced into the Aquarian age. So, if you're wondering, man, how did that dude break down this full moon so crazy? How did he know? How did he do it? He got superpowers. Man, I wish I could break some stuff down like that one day. Hey man, it ain't no magic trick. It ain't no sleight of hand. Nothing like that. I created this workbook where I just take all of these symbols and make it into a language of my own and just recreate it. And now it makes sense. You could do the same thing too. My workbook is available on Amazon right now. I have a Kindle workbook and I also have a physical copy that you can buy. I've been getting great reviews on this book. It's a book for you to help you. So any questions about this book, you can always hit me up. I'm always available. That's hoodmystic@gmail.com. If you bought the book and got a free download, could you do me a huge favor? Could you go to Amazon and give the book a review? Please, if you ain't ever did nothing for me, please, I beg you. There's a lot of people who got the free ebook. It's a lot of people who bought the book. Even if it's not the best book that you've ever read or you don't like it, please give me a review. Tell me what you like about the book, what you don't like about the book, so I could make changes and know how to become a better writer. A lot of people got the book. I haven't got that many reviews, so please do me that one solid. I really would appreciate it. So with that being said, man, thank you for tuning in to the Hood Mystic. Thank you for tuning in to the Hood Mystic podcast, man. We've been discussing this upcoming full moon in Aquarius that is happening September 14th, 2019. If I can describe it in one word, man, I just have to describe it as lit.